December 25, 2024, Christmas morning, Baltic Sea, Gulf of Finland. Between Helsinki and Tallinn, an undersea power cable suddenly fails. Estlink 2, critical electricity link between Finland and Estonia. Capacity, 650 megawatts. Supplies 20% of Estonia's power. Then 4 telecommunications cables cut simultaneously. Internet connections severed. Phone lines dead. This is not accident. This is sabotage. Finnish Coast Guard launches emergency investigation. They detect suspicious vessel nearby. Oil tanker Eagle S, registered in Cook Islands, heading toward Egypt. But her anchor is dragging 90 kilometers across the seabed, cutting cables, destroying infrastructure. NATO's worst fear is happening. Russia's hybrid warfare has gone kinetic. Warpulse has the tactical breakdown. The Eagle S is part of Russia's Shadow Fleet, old tanker. Built 2969, poorly maintained. Obscure ownership, registered offshore, carrying Russian oil, evading sanctions, financing Putin's war machine, and now suspected of deliberate sabotage. Finnish authorities track her movements. Automatic identification system shows suspicious pattern. The vessel slowed near each cable, then sped up. Anchor down, dragging across seabed. Gouge marks on ocean floor. Cable breaks matching trajectory. This is no accident. At 8:15 a.m., Finnish Coast Guard cutter Turva intercepts. Eagle S, this is Finnish Coast Guard. Stop engines immediately. You are suspected of damaging critical infrastructure. Prepare to be boarded. The tanker captain doesn't respond initially. Then finally, radios. We experienced anchor malfunction. High winds. We had no knowledge of cables. This is accident. Finnish commander. Your transponder shows deliberate course changes. You will be boarded and inspected. At 9:30 a.m., boarding team secures the vessel. 14 crew members, Russian, Georgian, Kazakh, Azerbaijani. Captain and first officer immediately detained. The rest confined to quarters under guard. Investigators examine the anchor system. 1 anchor missing, lost during the cable drag. Deliberate sabotage or terrible accident? Warpulse confirms, evidence points to sabotage. Comment if this was intentional attack. The Eagle S is towed to Finnish port. Anchor recovered from seabed by Navy divers. It weighs 6 tons, chain still attached. Forensic analysis shows cable fragments embedded in anchor. 3 different cables, cut at 3 different locations. Mathematics of probability. Virtually impossible to be accidental. But proving intent is difficult. Crew claims mechanical failure. Anchor dropped unexpectedly. They tried to raise it. Couldn't. Storm conditions. Ship continued moving. Anchor dragged. Cables cut. Unfortunate series of events. Not sabotage. Finnish prosecutors disagree. The vessel altered course multiple times. Transponder data shows deliberate navigation. This was intentional damage to NATO infrastructure. Russia denies everything. Foreign Ministry. We have no connection to this vessel. Han mates. Ship is privately owned, registered in Cook Islands. Any accusations are Russophobic propaganda. But investigators trace ownership. Eagle S is owned by Caravella LLC, UAE-based company, which is owned by Shell Company in Dubai, which traces back to Russian oligarch with Kremlin ties. The network is complex, deliberately obscured, but the connections are there. This is Russia's hybrid warfare playbook. Use private vessels, maintain plausible deniability, cause damage, claim innocence. Estonia declares emergency. Prime Minister Kristen Michal. This is attack on our nation. These shadow vessels finance Russian war machine. And now they attack our infrastructure. Repair costs, $60 million, repair time, 7 months minimum. Estonia runs on reduced power. Rolling blackouts possible. Economic damage, hundreds of millions. This is exactly what Russia wants. Chaos, disruption, fear, division, all without firing shot. Who's responsible? A. Russia directly. B. Rogue ship owner? C. Accidental but negligent. NATO responds immediately. Secretary General Mark Rutte announces Operation Baltic Sentry. We will protect critical infrastructure. No more sabotage will be tolerated. Naval forces deploy. Frigates from multiple nations. Germany sends Bayern, Denmark sends Absalon. Sweden deploys Karlstad. Poland sends Ślązak, plus P-8 Poseidon patrol aircraft. Naval drones, submarines. The Baltic Sea becomes heavily militarized zone. But this is not the first incident. October 2023. Chinese vessel Nu Polar Bear drags anchor. Damages Baltic connector gas pipeline between Finland and Estonia. Also cuts telecommunications cable. China later admits vessel responsible. Claims storm caused it. November 2024. 2 more cables cut. BCS East-West interlink between Sweden and Lithuania. Sea Lion 1 between Finland and Germany. Suspect Chinese vessel E. Pungs departed from Russian port. Passed over cables at exact cut times. Held by Danish authorities. Investigation ongoing. Pattern is clear. Since Russia invaded Ukraine, cable sabotage surged. 0 incidents 2015-2021. 10 incidents 2022-2025. 7 of those in final 2 months of 2024. Coincidence? Absolutely not. This is coordinated hybrid warfare campaign. Russia cannot fight NATO militarily. Conventional war means Russian defeat. So they use unconventional methods. Sabotage cables, disrupt energy, sow chaos, all while maintaining plausible deniability. The Baltic Sea is perfect target. Shallow waters. Average depth, 180 feet. Easy for ships to drag anchors along bottom. Critical cables everywhere. Energy, communications, internet. Minimal protection, few patrols previously. NATO members dependent on interconnections. Cut cables, isolate Baltic states, create vulnerability. Justified NATO response or overreaction? Comment J or O. The investigation of Eagle S becomes exhaustive forensic operation. Finnish National Bureau of Investigation deploys full resources. Divers recover the missing 6-ton anchor from seabed. Analysis reveals cable fragments embedded in metal. 3 different cables, cut at 3 precise locations. Forensic metallurgy shows impact angles, force calculations. Experts conclude anchor was deliberately dragged, not dropped accidentally, not pulled by currents, intentionally positioned to cut maximum infrastructure. Ship's black box data retrieved and analyzed. GPS track shows the entire voyage. Departed St. Petersburg, Russia on December 20th, carrying oil products. Destination listed as Port Said, Egypt. But route takes unusual path. Instead of shortest course through Kattegat Strait, vessel detoured, specifically through Gulf of Finland, directly over undersea cable routes. Transponder data reveals suspicious patterns. Vessel slowed to 4 knots at first cable location. Maintained that speed for 90 minutes, precisely over cable. Then accelerated to 12 knots until next cable. Slowed again, same pattern, same speed. This happened 3 times, 3 cables. Mathematical probability of this being accidental, 0.0001%. Forensic experts testify this was deliberate sabotage mission. Communications intercepts provide additional evidence. Finnish signals intelligence monitored radio traffic. Encrypted messages between Eagle S and unknown shore station. Location, Kaliningrad, Russia. Known FSB facility. Messages sent before each cable location. Replies received after cable cuts. Content encrypted, but pattern is damning. Crew interrogations reveal little initially. Captain claims mechanical failure, anchor malfunction. We tried to raise anchor, system failed. Storm conditions made control impossible. We continued moving, anchor dragged. Terrible accident. First officer supports captain's story. Other crew members claim ignorance. We just followed orders. Didn't know about cables. But forensic psychology experts note deception indicators. Inconsistent statements, nervous behaviors, evasive answers. After days of interrogation, junior crew member breaks. Engineer from Georgia. Not ideologically committed. Just wanted job. Got caught in sabotage operation. He provides crucial testimony. Captain received special instructions before voyage. New crew members replaced original ones in St. Petersburg. Captain and first officer spent hours studying charts. They marked specific coordinates, practiced anchor operations. We were told to disable transponder at certain times. This testimony breaks the case. Prosecutors have evidence of premeditation, planning, coordination, deliberate execution. This was not accident. This was mission. Captain and first officer face serious charges. Aggravated criminal mischief. Endangering maritime traffic. Sabotage of critical infrastructure. Conspiracy. Maximum sentences, 15 years each. Trial begins in March 2025. Evidence presented, GPS data, forensic analysis, crew testimony. Defense argues, accident, mechanical failure, no criminal intent. Prosecution demonstrates, pattern, planning, deliberate action. Jury deliberates for 5 days. Verdict, guilty on all charges. Sentences, Captain 8 years in Finnish prison. First officer 5 years. Message sent clearly. Sabotage has severe consequences. But this is one crew, one ship. The Shadow Fleet continues operations globally. War Pulse tracks ongoing threat systematically. Comment if you think this will stop future attacks. NATO's Operation Baltic Sentry expands significantly. Initial deployment, 12 warships, 6 maritime patrol aircraft. Expanded to 25 warships, 15 aircraft, 8 submarines, plus underwater drones, autonomous sensors, satellite monitoring. The Baltic Sea becomes most heavily surveilled water on Earth. Frigates from multiple nations patrol continuously. Germany contributes 3 frigates, Denmark 2, Sweden 3, Poland deploys 4 vessels, Finland 3, Estonia 2. UK sends destroyer and support ships. US provides guided missile destroyer plus P-8 Poseidons, all coordinated through NATO Maritime Command. Shared intelligence, common operating procedures, joint response protocols. The patrols focus on critical infrastructure zones, cables mapped precisely, protection zones established. Any vessel approaching within 5 nautical miles gets intercepted. Warning radio call first. Alter course away from protected area. If ignored, warship intercepts physically. If suspicious, full boarding and inspection. This aggressive posture deters most Shadow Fleet operations. Ship owners calculate risk versus reward. Sabotage mission brings heavy NATO presence. Vessel likely seized. Crew imprisoned. Mission failed. Better to avoid Baltic entirely. Some Shadow Fleet vessels reroute around Baltic Sea. Longer journey, higher costs, but less risk. Others continue operations but avoid cable zones. They transport sanctioned goods but don't sabotage. Still illegal, still hunted, but less provocative. The sabotage campaign decreases after Eagle S, but doesn't stop completely. January 26, 2025. Cable between Latvia and Sweden damaged. Maltese flagged vessel Vision suspected. Swedish Coast Guard intercepts. Boarding team investigates. Evidence unclear. Possibly accidental anchor drag in storm. Vessel detained for 2 weeks, then released. Prosecutors cannot prove deliberate sabotage, but suspicion remains. Pattern continues. February 24, 2025. Another cable damaged. Between Germany and Finland, east of Gotland Island. Unknown vessel, no identification, transponder off. By the time patrol ships arrive, vessel is gone. Cable cut cleanly. Repair cost, $40 million. Sabotage strongly suspected. Perpetrator escaped. This incident reveals ongoing vulnerability. Despite NATO patrols, despite surveillance, Baltic Sea covers 149,000 square miles. Impossible to monitor every square meter constantly. Cables extend thousands of kilometers across seabed. Protection requires either permanent presence at every cable meter or accept some vulnerability and respond after damage. NATO chooses hybrid approach. Heavy patrols near critical nodes, cable landing sites, major trunk routes, key junction points, secondary cables less protected. Accept some risk there. Technology improvements help gradually. Fiber optic sensors installed along cables. Detect vibrations, pressure changes, impact events. Alert monitoring stations immediately. Response time decreases from hours to minutes. Underwater autonomous drones deployed experimentally. They patrol cable routes independently. Cameras, sonar, communication relay, operating for weeks without human intervention. If they detect anchor dragging or suspicious activity, they alert. Warships respond rapidly. But technology has limitations. Sensors can malfunction, give false alarms. Drones have limited range and endurance. Cables still vulnerable to determined adversary. The diplomatic consequences extend far beyond Baltic region. Russia's hybrid warfare tactics become template. Other countries study and potentially replicate. China observes closely. Taiwan surrounded by cables. What if Beijing ordered submarine cable cuts? Isolate Taiwan, disrupt communications, psychological warfare. Iran considers similar operations. Undersea cables in Persian Gulf, Strait of Hormuz. Cut them, disrupt regional communications, create chaos. North Korea has capabilities too. Underwater infiltration, sabotage training, submarine operations. They could target cables in Sea of Japan. The Eagle-S incident proves concept works. Cut cables, cause massive disruption, maintain plausible deniability. This encourages other actors to attempt similar operations. International law struggles to address this threat effectively. UN Convention on Law of the Sea protects navigation freedom, but doesn't specifically address cable sabotage. Vessels can transit international waters freely, even if cables damaged. Proving deliberate sabotage requires extensive evidence. Intent, planning, direct orders. Very difficult to establish, so perpetrators exploit legal ambiguities, use civilian vessels, private companies, obscure ownership, commit sabotage, claim accident, escape prosecution. The system has vulnerabilities Russia exploits skillfully. Proposed solutions range from practical to extreme. Enhanced monitoring, more sensors, more patrols, more technology. Cost? 5 to 10 billion for Baltic alone. Multiply globally, hundreds of billions. Who pays? No consensus. Legal reforms, new treaties, enhanced enforcement, strict liability, but requires international agreement. Russia and China won't sign treaties restricting their actions. Military response. Treat cable sabotage as act of war. Retaliate against perpetrators' home country, but risks escalation to shooting war. Most nations reluctant to go that far. Physical protection. Bury cables deeper. Add armor. Create barriers. Cost prohibitive. Technically difficult. Limited effectiveness. The Baltic Sea cable crisis reveals fundamental truth about modern warfare. Infrastructure is more vulnerable than militaries. Armies can defend themselves. Navies can fight back. But cables lie defenseless on ocean floor. Anyone with anchor and ship can damage them. This asymmetry favors attackers over defenders. Russia recognized this vulnerability and exploited ruthlessly. Hybrid warfare achieves strategic goals without military confrontation. Disrupt economy, create fear, divide alliances, all while maintaining plausible deniability. Never quite crossing threshold that triggers Article 5. Always below level that justifies military response. This is gray zone conflict perfected. The pattern will continue inevitably. Russia will order more sabotage operations, maybe not in Baltic, too much NATO presence now, but elsewhere, Mediterranean, North Sea, Atlantic cables. Other countries will attempt similar operations. China, Iran, North Korea, proxy groups, all studying Russian tactics, learning lessons, preparing their own cable sabotage campaigns. The Eagle-S incident reveals broader vulnerabilities. Undersea cables carry 99% of global internet traffic, 900,000 miles of cable across ocean floors. Mostly unprotected, easy to damage. If Russia can sabotage Baltic, they can sabotage anywhere. Transatlantic cables, Pacific cables, Mediterranean cables. Global communications depend on these vulnerable links, and protecting them all is impossible. Technology offers partial solutions: underwater drones, autonomous sensors, satellite monitoring. But cables are too numerous, oceans too vast. Complete protection is fantasy. The only real deterrent is consequences. Seize vessels, prosecute crews, destroy shadow fleet economically, make sabotage more costly than beneficial. NATO implements this strategy. Shadow fleet vessels targeted, sanctioned, seized when possible. Insurance companies refuse coverage. Ports deny access. Financial system freezes transactions. Slowly, the network degrades. Ship owners calculate risk versus reward. Sabotage brings heat, investigations, seizures. Maybe not worth it. Some vessels withdraw, refuse sabotage missions. But Russia has hundreds more, and only needs few successes to cause major damage. Drop your prediction. A. NATO stops all sabotage. B. Russia continues attacks. C. Escalation to shooting war. By March 2025, Eagle S case goes to trial. Captain and first officer testify. They claim innocence, anchor malfunction, storm conditions. Prosecutors present evidence, transponder data, course changes, multiple cable cuts. Expert testimony. Probability of accident is 0.0002. D1%. Jury deliberates 3 days. Verdict: guilty on all charges. Sentences: Captain 8 years, First Officer 5 years. Message sent: sabotage has consequences. But in Moscow, planners continue operations. Lose one ship? Build 2 more. Crew imprisoned? Recruit replacements. The hybrid warfare campaign continues, just more carefully, more subtly. The Estlink 2 cable is finally repaired. August 2025. 7 months offline. Cost: $60 million. Estonia struggled throughout. Rolling blackouts, industrial slowdowns, economic damage. But the cable is restored and heavily protected now. Naval patrols, underwater sensors, constant monitoring. But there are dozens more cables, all potentially vulnerable, all potential sabotage targets. The Baltic Sea remains permanent flashpoint for hybrid conflict. NATO versus Russia. Infrastructure warfare. No shots fired yet, but cables attacked, economies damaged, populations threatened. This represents fundamental shift in modern warfare. Traditional conflict involves armies, navies, air forces, clear battle lines, defined combatants, overt hostilities. Hybrid warfare is different. Use civilian assets, maintain plausible deniability, target infrastructure, avoid military confrontation, achieve strategic goals without triggering Article 5. Russia perfected this approach. After Crimea annexation, after Ukraine invasion, they cannot fight NATO directly. Conventional war means defeat, so they attack asymmetrically. Cyber attacks, election interference, energy manipulation, and now, underwater sabotage. The Baltic Sea is ideal testing ground. 9 NATO members surround it, plus Russia. Critical infrastructure everywhere. Shallow waters enable access. Legal ambiguities complicate response. If Russian warship attacked cable, that's act of war. But civilian vessel? Private company? Rogue captain? Attribution becomes murky. Response becomes complicated. This is exactly Russia's strategy. International law struggles with hybrid threats. UN Convention on Law of the Sea protects navigation freedom. Vessels can transit international waters freely, even if they drag anchors, even if cables get damaged. Proving deliberate sabotage requires evidence, intent, premeditation, orders from state actors. Very difficult to establish beyond doubt. So Russia exploits this gap. Use shadow fleet, obscure ownership, plausible accidents, damage infrastructure, claim innocence, escape consequences. The pattern repeats across Baltic. New polar bear. Storm caused anchor drag. Ipongsarin, routine navigation. Unfortunate coincidence, Eagle S. Mechanical failure, deeply regret accident. Always same excuse, always deniability. But 10 incidents in 3 years? Statistical impossibility of all being accidents. NATO members recognize pattern, but response is constrained. Cannot attack Russian territory over cable cuts. That's disproportionate escalation. Potentially starts war. Cannot sink shadow fleet vessels preemptively. That violates maritime law. International outcry. Can only respond after damage occurs. Investigate. Seize vessels. Prosecute crews. Reactive, not proactive. Russia maintains initiative. Technology might shift balance eventually. Advanced underwater sensors. AI-powered surveillance. Autonomous drones patrolling cable routes. Real-time anomaly detection. Immediate response capability. But deployment takes years, costs billions, and cables span thousands of kilometers. Complete protection remains distant goal. Meanwhile, vulnerability persists. Economic implications are staggering. Baltic states depend on undersea connections. Estonia, 30% electricity from imports via cables. Lithuania, 40% internet traffic through submarine links. Latvia, gas supplies through undersea pipelines. Cut these connections, economies falter. Industries shut down, services disrupted, society stressed. That's Russia's objective. Weaken NATO from within, create instability, demonstrate vulnerability, undermine confidence, all without military invasion. The psychological impact matters too. Citizens question, are we safe? Businesses worry, can we rely on infrastructure? Investors hesitate, is region too risky? This erodes social cohesion, economic confidence. Exactly what hybrid warfare intends. Environmental damage is collateral. Dragging anchors destroys seabed ecosystems. Damaged cables leak chemicals, pollute waters. Repair operations disturb marine life. Baltic Sea is fragile environment, already stressed by pollution, overfishing, climate change. Sabotage adds another threat. But nobody discusses environmental costs. Security concerns override ecological protection. This is 21st century conflict. Not tanks and artillery, but cables and sabotage and plausible deniability. Russia cannot defeat NATO militarily, so they undermine from within. Cut communications, disrupt energy, sow fear, force NATO to spend billions defending, tie down resources, create divisions, all without declaring war. The Eagle S was just one ship, but it represents larger threat. Shadow fleet of hundreds, operating globally, evading sanctions, financing wars, sabotaging infrastructure, and proving incredibly difficult to stop. Could this escalate to real war? Will Russia continue sabotage? Is Baltic Sea now permanent battleground? Warpulse will monitor every development. Because undersea cables are civilization's Achilles heel. Cut them, and modern society stops. No internet, no communications, no financial transactions. Russia knows this. NATO knows this. And the battle for cable security is just beginning. Subscribe to Warpulse, where military operations become breaking news. Real conflicts, real consequences, real coverage. The Eagle S sits seized in Finnish port. Crew imprisoned, vessel forfeited. But the threat continues. More Shadow Fleet vessels, more potential sabotage. The Baltic Sea is hybrid warfare battlefield. And Warpulse is watching every move. Warpulse, where real conflicts meet real coverage.